Einstein. The name itself basically means genius, right? But here's the thing. We're not just here to praise him. Today, we're going to talk about correcting him.
I mean, when you hear the name Einstein, what pops into your head? It's probably this picture, isn't it? The crazy hair, those knowing eyes. He's become the poster child for pure, untouchable genius, the guy who figured out the universe.
But what if that whole idea of him being infallible is just, well, wrong? What if the biggest brain of the last century also made some of the biggest mistakes?
Okay, so let's dive right in. We're going to start with his biggest blunders. These are the moments where he literally argued with the universe that his own math was trying to show him.
So you got to remember, back in the day, we're talking early 20th century, the common wisdom was that the universe was static. It was just there. Always had been, always would be, never changing in size. It was a nice, simple picture.
But here's the kicker. Einstein's own brilliant theory, general relativity, it had a huge problem with that static idea. The math was practically yelling at him, saying, hey, with all this gravity, everything should be crunching in on itself. His beautiful theory was predicting a total collapse, which just didn't fit with what he believed. So, what does a genius do when his math doesn't match his worldview? Well, in this case, he kind of cheated. He literally added a new piece to his equations in 1917, something called the cosmological constant. Think of it as a fudge factor, an anti-gravity force he just invented to perfectly push everything apart, balancing out gravity's pull, and keeping his static universe nice and stable.
And then, along comes Edwin Hubble. He points his telescope at the sky and proves that the universe isn't static at all. It's expanding. Suddenly, Einstein's whole fix was totally pointless. He was this close to predicting the expanding universe himself, but his own assumptions got in the way. He reportedly called that little fudge factor his biggest blunder.
Okay, so that's a big one. But his fight with an expanding universe, that was just the beginning. He was also about to get into a huge argument with the next big thing in physics, the truly weird world of quantum mechanics.
And right at the center of this fight was a concept he just hated, one he called spooky action at a distance. We call it quantum entanglement. The idea is wild. You take two particles, link them up, and then separate them. Could be across the room, could be across the galaxy. The moment you measure one, the other one instantly knows. For Einstein, that was just impossible. It broke all the rules. His argument was basically that quantum mechanics wasn't the full story. He thought there had to be hidden variables. Imagine you have two gloves, a left and a right. You put them in separate boxes and mail them to opposite ends of the Earth. When you open one box and see the right-hand glove, you instantly know the other one is the left. But that's not spooky. The information was always there. That's what Einstein thought was happening. But decades later, a series of clever experiments proved him wrong. Turns out that spooky action is very real. The universe really is as strange and probabilistic as quantum mechanics says it is, something Einstein just never came to terms with. So we've got these big philosophical clashes. But it wasn't just about that. At the end of the day, Einstein was a scientist in the trenches, scribbling out equations. And like any scientist, sometimes you just mess up the math. A great example is gravitational waves. His own theory predicted them way back in 1916. But then, fast forward to the 1930s, and after doing some calculations, he actually concluded he was wrong and they didn't exist. He even sent in a paper saying so. Thankfully, a reviewer pointed out an error in his math. He fixed it, went back to his original idea, and, well, 100 years later, we actually detected them. It just goes to show his original idea was so good it even survived his own attempt to disprove it.
And you know what? This kind of became a pattern for him. Get the big, revolutionary idea right, but trip up on the initial calculations. Just look at one of his most famous predictions, that gravity bends light. It's a fundamental part of general relativity, but when he first calculated how much the sun should bend starlight, his answer was wrong. It was off by 50%. He had to go back, rework it with his full theory, and get the right number. And then in 1919, a solar eclipse proved his new corrected number was spot on. That's the moment that made him a worldwide celebrity.
All right, so we've been talking about blunders and miscalculations, but now it's time to talk about what makes him, well, Einstein. Let's look at the staggering scale of what he got right. Because you might be thinking, after hearing all this, so was he really all that? And the answer is a resounding, absolutely 100% yes. Here's why.
His big ideas, special and general relativity, they aren't just good theories. They might be the most successful theories in the history of science. We test them constantly, and they just keep passing with flying colors. The GPS that got you here today, it needs to account for relativity, or it would be off by miles every single day. Those gravitational waves we talked about, we found them. Black holes, we've seen their shadows, exactly like his math said we would. I mean, even his failures, like his search for a unified theory, are still inspiring the biggest questions in physics today.
And that brings us to the real point of all this. The genius of Einstein isn't that he was perfect. It's something much deeper and way more interesting. What Einstein's story really shows us is what science is all about. It's not about perfect people handing down perfect truths from on high. It's messy, it's human, it's full of arguments and dead ends and mistakes. Getting it wrong isn't a bug in the system, it's the feature. It's how we move forward. And really, that might be the most amazing thing about his theories. They were so robust, so groundbreaking, that they worked even when he himself doubted them or got the math wrong. They were bigger than even their own creator. So, I'll leave you with this. What does genius really mean? Is it someone who never makes a mistake? Or is it someone whose ideas are so powerful that they change the world forever, even with all the blunders along the way?